everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Leila, the Lenormand reader, and I use the amazing Lenormand deck. Have a look at the links that I have for you so you can explore and master this amazing deck. Welcome to a new pick-a-card reading. I'm excited to be doing another one. Today we are focusing on what is ahead for you within the coming 3 months. So it's an open-ended reading. We're going to let the cards guide us and tell us what the focus is going to be for you. The idea is that we are time-bounding the reading in a phase of 3 months. We have 3 decks. I'm going to be doing 3 different readings, so 1 deck per reading. This is the Terra Lenormand. This is the Silhouettes deck, which is my own deck, and this is the Blink of an Eye. So we're not using all 3 decks for each reading. Each reading has its own deck. And I'll be doing a mini piqué layout, and there's plenty of detail in that, and there are also some focus elements that help guide the area that's going to be most relevant for you over the coming phase. So pause the video if you need to decide what you're going to tune into. You're going to find the timestamps as always, and I will see you in your reading. Okay, here is the Terra Lenormand deck. We are starting with you. Let's deal out your mini piqué and see what is ahead for you within the coming 3-month period. Okay, here is your mini piqué, and as you can see, it's a pretty big spread. We've got 3 rows of 6 cards and then a bottom row of 4 cards. So there's a lot going on here, and I'm also noticing how pretty this deck is on this mat of cards. So a very exciting reading. Let's get into it. Let's get right into it. There's a lot to read here. So I like to start with a few cards to sort of, put a frame around what is going on. So starting with some corner cards here, we have the tree and cross, and this can point to some important growth or an important decision that you're going to make. And what really stands out is the next pair of corner cards. We have the mouse and the scythe, and this is very clear about removing something that is annoying you, getting rid of something that has been draining you. It could also point to a loss. Maybe you wasted money, wasted time, or something happened that causes a loss of sorts. So with the tree and cross, you're going to need to take a step back and consider what you do about this. So it sounds like from the get-go, there is something that needs to be rectified and changed, and also possibly removed. Something else that stands out is the bottom line. We have the whip at the end of the line. The whip is quite a challenging card. And with the ring, it definitely points to a break off or a separation, and it is often a combination of divorce. Usually it's the scythe, but the whip is just as strong. And so this really aligns with what we're seeing in the corner cards, mainly the mouse and scythe. The mouse and scythe. So there's a removal, a change, a separation that we see. And there is another parallel, actually. The tree and cross are slower cards. They're more patient, as are the garden and anchor. So it sounds like you're going to stick around for a while, but then you are going to make a change and release yourself from a certain situation, from a certain environment, or from a specific relationship. Now, looking at the earlier cards here at the top, we have the tree, moon, and letter. I think you're waiting on some news. You're waiting on an invitation or a proposal, and this is probably what's going to enable you to make a change. So once you get that, once you get the approval, the feedback, the invitation, or the offer, you'll be able to move away from your current circumstance, from your current situation. So we have the tree at the corner, and we have the moon, which is slower. We have the tree with the cross. We have the garden with the anchor. All of these are suggesting that you're sticking around a while longer until you can make this move, make this change, which we see clearly through the scythe and mouse and the ring and whip. And this is a clear separation. This is what the change is about. It's about a separation. And the lily, the letter at the top with the moon is a card of news. And so this is where we're seeing the feedback that kicks things off. Continuing on this line, we also have the stork, woman, and scythe. So this really keeps building on what we suggested. The stork is a card of action and activity. And so again, it sounds like this news or this invitation is the trigger for what enables you to make this change. We also have the woman, another indication of a relationship, just like what we saw in the bottom line. So the cards are tight. You see, when we get into the reading like this, we can see clearly the connections and these messages that are consistent inside the reading. So who this woman is flexible in the same way that who this what this relationship is flexible. It's going to depend on your specific circumstances. Not necessarily a woman. These cards are flexible. It just depends on your specifics. So there is a change, there is a separation from this person. She could also be the person who delivers the news, and the scythe can mean that it comes suddenly. And again, it's in contrast with this waiting time that we see in your card. So a clear message here of a change and a news that enables you to make this change. In the second row, we have the coffin with the ship fish, which is great for money, and the snake, book, and birds. The snake is another silent card, and with the book, it can be a combination of secrets, but the bird on the other side of the book definitely suggests an announcement and the news that comes through or the communication that comes through. Again, we're seeing a similar structure. We're seeing an initial waiting time, having to be patient for the news to come through, and then we see it coming through. And we also see it in the same order of the cards. So we have the tree earlier, and then the news that picks things up. We have the coffin, which is a card of absence, of endings, and of things not really moving. So it's like things being on hold. And also the snake, which is like quieting things until there's the news. And we see it here where there's like a hanging in there until you can break out. So a very clear structure throughout the cards that point to this news that comes through. Now, the ship and fish is actually great for money, and this could be telling us that the news that you're waiting for or the communication um, is related to your practical life, your work life, maybe jobs, maybe something in your business, or in similar areas in your life. So you're waiting on things to move forward. I think you could be privy to some inside information until it's official or it's out with the bird. So again, the idea of hanging in there until you get the news and you can act on it. The snake is often a tricky card. It can be a card of deception, of um, nasty people, usually people who are toxic. But with the fish, I generally like the snake because it points to someone who is clever and who knows how to get what they want. So in this line, it's like you're after a certain opportunity and you're waiting on it to come through, and the news does come through. So very clear cards with a consistent structure and message. Now the mouse with the flowers is in the third row. We have the dog, rider, house, and cross. A pretty neutral line overall. The flowers is great news. Well, it's a very positive card. So it is good news to see it in this line. We see it after the mouse, which helps overcome the challenges. The dog, rider, and house can point to a visitor or going to a certain place, and the cross can be an element of significance and also possibly the need to have to make this change or to have to make this move. It's also in this context, it would ask for a bit of caution. Maybe things are not as smooth or as easy as you connect with this environment. Now, what the house is, what kind of space it is, that's going to depend on your specific situation. It can be a job thing. Like we said, there's a likelihood of a focus on your work and these practical areas. It could also be another space. It could be a family home. It could be someone else's home, friends, and so on. So there is a good connection here with people with the flowers dog rider. It's usually a combination of a visitor. So the idea of a get together is clearly in the cards. The cross makes it a bit heavy, so it can burden you a little bit with the quality of the relationship where it feels a bit heavy. But something else that comes to mind through this line is that, in line with the job or this opportunity, clearly you're going to be invited to meet with some people, and the cross can bring up the idea of tests. So in context of work, you might have to maybe do an interview and show, if you can do this job or take up this project. It could also be a literal kind of test where you have exams and things like that. So there is an element of having to prove yourself, and it's probable that you're going to do well, but we will wait to see the comments, see the other cards. So um, this news, this invitation probably leads to you meeting with these people, visiting, and having maybe to show yourself or to show your capabilities, and to pass a test, or demonstrate your ability to join this situation, probably a work situation. So far the cards are kind of neutral. We're seeing a lot of the actions and the dynamics, and not so much some very bright cards. And in fact, we don't have a lot of bright cards. They're mostly neutral. We have the anchor, flowers, and tree that are some of the brighter cards. The ship is also bright, and everything else I have to say is more on the neutral side. Let's move to the column. So we have the tree, coffin, and mouse. This is a very clear message, really supporting what we said earlier, the idea of having to wait. And it sounds like you've waited a lot, or you're going to have to wait a lot. This can try your patience. It can cause you to feel anxious, and you can also get bored, just sitting there waiting. And also maybe you're tired of the situation that you're in. And so you're really looking forward to the feedback that will enable this change. So a clear message here of things tapering off, and you being in this kind of bored or anxious state, waiting for a change. The moon with the ship, flowers, and garden is a very bubbly line. It's one of the brightest card line in your layout. This is definitely an invitation and the feedback that comes back. The flowers is a card of returning. And with the garden here, there is again that space that we saw with the house, the idea of being invited to a certain place or re-engaging in a certain environment. Obviously, it ties into this news that we saw. And so I think it's very similar to what we see in the third row, where you're invited to join, or to to at least meet with these people. This is a line that could tell us that you could actually get it. So as a result of your meeting or the test that you need to pass or what you need to demonstrate about yourself, this is a line that can mean that you do pretty well. Here's another really nice line. It starts off with the letter, which ties into this offer. And the fish, dog, and anchor is an invitation and also a very positive conclusion. So there is a good connection here, and we're seeing another confirmation of the invitation. The fish is a card of money, and so this is where we saw already in the second row that it's likely a focus on your work, your projects, your business. You could get a new customer, you could be a new employee, you could get the job or the project. So very nice cards. The stork with the snake, bird, and ring. This is where we start to see the separation that needs to happen, the change that needs to happen. The snake and stork and the snake and bird are very much about moving away, getting away from the ring, which is a relationship or a commitment. So again, we're seeing that you want a change, and you're waiting for this news or this opportunity to come through. It looks like it does come through. You're very likely to get it, and so as a result, now you need to find a way out of the current situation here. The snake is different from the scythe and whip. The snake is calm and quiet. It's an inner card, whereas the scythe and whip are very outward and aggressive cards. So you are waiting on the right time to make this change. And there is also a suggestion to be diplomatic and to at least try to find a way out of this in a smooth way. Now, I'm not so sure you're able to do this. It sounds like at some point you just have to announce it and just be sharp about the change. But the snake can also be about the timing. So not just your approach, but also the timing. So this aligns with what we see earlier, the idea of the tree, coffin, and mouse, waiting, the coffin and ship, waiting, the tree and moon, slow, the garden and anchor, hanging on until you can make the change. So we see this confirmed here as well. Now, the woman, book, house, and whip is confirming what we saw a few times already. We have the whip on the other side of the house. And with the woman and book, it's like you have to reveal that you are parting or you are making a change. I have to also say that it's possible that this person is the one who leaves or who exits. In all cases, it's still to your advantage, and it does enable you to embrace other opportunities. So that too is a possible scenario. I don't think it's the more likely one. The more likely one is that you're getting out of a situation and leaving this person. So with the book and whip, just like with the bird and book, and as we'll see in the diagonals, the scythe and book, there's like an opening of the book, which is a revelation or a sharing of the news. The scythe with the bird and cross is similar to what we said. Again, the scythe and bird is like the news breaks out, if you like. So it can come as a shock as well. And with the cross, it sounds like what we were saying, that at some point you're just going to have to communicate this, and whichever way it lands, to be honest, you're just going to have to make a change and separate. So the scythe and bird can very much be about what you're saying, which is separation. You're announcing a separation, and it can also be how you say it. So it can't come a bit suddenly. You've given it time, you've been patient. Maybe you've also tried to be diplomatic about it, trying to communicate that you're going to make a change, but maybe the other party didn't really get it. So at some point, you're going to have to be sharp and clear. And also, it is the action of making a change. So these are some pretty clear cards. I have to say, we have a very consistent message throughout many cards, which is quite amazing. And the very positive message, I think, comes mainly through these two columns, where we see the very good news coming in, this positive feedback that enables you to make a change. And then the transition away from where you are at right now to this new opportunity looks to be a bit tricky. There can be some challenges with people. They could be a bit complicated. You could disagree with them and things like that. But it's pretty clear from this column, which is also at the end on the right-hand side of the layout, that you're going to have to make a change. So this is looking like it's encouraged. Now, another thing we can focus on are the two main portraits in a mini PK in this configuration, which is quite fun. We have at the center of the portraits these two cards. So we have the ship here and we have the book here. So the ship is focused on movement and the book is focused on knowledge, but also on news, and in the context of these cards, a revelation. So let's look a little bit at this portrait. This is a really bright portrait. We have the tree, ship, and dog. We have the mouse, ship, and letter. So again, the patience or the slowness of the earlier cards is overcome, and the ship suggests movement and this news that comes through. The top row, of course, we've read all of them as part of the rows and columns. So again, this confirms this invitation. This confirms the movement, that it's job, work, business, and money related, or at least in some practical area. And this is a lovely overcoming of the challenges. So really nice cards that confirm this news that comes back, this feedback, and it definitely enables you to kick things into motion. So you can look forward to some changes in the coming 3 months. And I have to say they're potentially big ones, right? We have to be clear about this. I mean, we have the ring and whip, we have the scythe at the corner, and in these combinations. So very clear that there is a change. Now, the book is a card of knowledge. Maybe it's part of it. Maybe you're doing some learning. Maybe you are educating yourself in order to be up to the change, or it's part of what's coming up. This could come through in this first diagonal here with the stork book and cross. But I have to say that the more likely meaning of the book is this opening and this revelation. So we have it with the scythe in the rider book and scythe. And the rider is another news card, a bit like the bird. We have it with the stork book and cross, like we just saw. So again, there's like these changes and these openings. The stork and book, the scythe and book, the rider and book, and the bird and book, all of these combinations suggest an opening, a revelation, and a sharing of the information or the news that comes through. So first you need to know in what direction you're heading, and then you can make the changes, because you need to have a clarity around what you're going to be doing next before you say you're going to change. So don't make a change before you have a clear direction forward. This is key advice coming through your PK. And we did see some challenges here. I think there are some challenges with people with the snake and book with the snake, which diagonals at the woman here, and the cross, and also with the bird. There can be some challenges in terms of how you communicate, and that's why initially we said that you're being nice and diplomatic about it, but then you have to just be sharp and make that change. So very clear here what we're seeing. Let's pick up a few more diagonals. This is a nice one. We have the coffin, flowers, and anchor. So after, again, this time of waiting, the news comes back, and it's a very positive news. Let's tie it into the next one. The anchor, rider with the book and scythe. So again, now you have the confidence to announce the change and to share the separation, or the move. So very bright here. Sort of similar with the coffin and moon, but also it points to an end of a phase, things wrapping up. And then the moon ties into the fish, rider, and whip. So this is quite a fast combination with the rider and whip, where you're able to make a swift change once you have that offer. And also, like we said a few times already, the news can come it can be a bit heavy handed, so there can be some issues with the people that you are separating from. We saw this in the bottom row, which is a key takeaway from the PK. The garden with the dog, snake, and woman. So again, here we're seeing the issues with certain people that you have in your environment right now. But it is also a message to not share your plans with anyone until you are able to break the news and share it. So we're seeing this consistently throughout the cards. Um, the woman and birds is just tying into what we saw already, this communication, probably to this person. And I think these are the main interesting diagonals. We tied a few of them. Yeah, here, for example, we have another change. So the mouse with the ship and letter, the news finally comes through, and the snake and house can mean that you keep it to yourself for some time until you're able to announce it, which we see here. The tree, we saw this one, I think, did we? Yeah, so the tree, ship, and dog, we saw this as part of the portrait. This ties into the ring and back into the house, and bird. So I think this is along the lines of connecting with this space, and where you have to meet and discuss and maybe interview and eventually collaborate. So this can be quite a lovely line, inviting you to re-engage. So overall, there is a clear message, very clear. Over the coming 3 months, there's a change. You're waiting for this, what enables you to make the change, the news, the trigger, the input. And then you're going to time the transition well. And then you're gonna go ahead and make that change. So this is bright, and I think it is quite exciting. I feel like it could be a lot, like, anticipating this and then proving yourself that you can take on this next project or this next job or the next thing that you're doing, and then transitioning away from where you are. It could actually be a lot within 3 months. I mean, 3 months sounds long, but it's also at the same time not all that long. And so, it can feel like there's a lot going on in the anticipation and then making the move. Let me know what you make of this. I hope you've enjoyed this reading. I hope you're excited about the changes that are ahead. Let me know in what context this materialized for you. Like you could wait and then come back, but also you could tell me what you feel could be ahead for you based on your specific situation right now. And I just want to add a note that although the ring can be a personal relationship, I'm not really seeing that this is very much a breakup or a separation or a divorce or something like that with another person. Another angle we can look at here is if the ring and the people cards are in fact relationship cards, like personal relationship cards. And I have to say that is a possibility. And in this sense, the cards can be a bit more difficult because they tend to be a bit more emotional, a bit heavier when it comes to uh, divorces and breakups and separations. But I have to say the cards are still clear about that nonetheless. And it could be something that you had been wanting. So maybe you're breaking off with your partner or a person, like a friend. It doesn't have to be like an intimate personal relationship. It can be like a close relationship, something not related to work. That's what I mean. And so this is possible. Maybe you're hanging in there, you're waiting for some news or some input or some ideas to come through. And given time, enough time, you could separate from this person and you could break away from them. So that is also very clear in the cards. I have to say though that even though we have strong, clear breakup cards, I'm not seeing cards of emotional upsets, being sad or being, stuck in this. It sounds like you're ready to move on, and this could be a key advice of the cards as well. And you're just waiting for the right time to do this. So it can be relieving. But again, there's a lot of focus on the transition in any context. So this could be what you're working through in the coming 3 months. So I have to say, this is a powerful reading. There are powerful changes that are possible ahead for you within the 3 months. And it could feel like a lot. It could feel like there's a lot going on, anticipating the change, getting the input for the change, making the change, and the transition away. It sounds like it could be a lot. And I know 3 months sounds like a long time, but it not always is actually. It can be pretty short. So it sounds like there's a lot, going on for you over the coming 3 months in terms of deep changes that are possible. Let me know what you make of this. I certainly look forward to your thoughts and feedback, what context this figured for you. Maybe you can leave it and then come back to let me know after 3 months have passed, or maybe you can share with me right away what you think is going to materialize just because what's ahead. Thank you very much for tuning in. Very best of luck with the coming phase. And until next time, take very good care of yourself. Welcome to the Silhouettes group reading. I've got the Silhouettes deck here. This is my own deck. Let's go ahead and deal out your mini Piquet tableau and see what is ahead for you in the next 3 months. Okay, here is your mini Piquet. As you can see, it's a big layout. We have 3 rows of 6 cards and a 4th row of 4 cards. And so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of cards, but we can focus on it in certain ways and we'll get good guidance for what's ahead for you in the coming 3 months. So honestly, what stands out right from the get-go are these 3 cards here. The first 3 cards at the top, we have the Coffin, Scythe, and Whip. This is a clear ending and it can be an aggressive ending. It can be also pretty final. And of course, we're going to see with the rest of the card what this is about, but this clearly points to an ending and a change. In contrast with the bottom row, which points to a relationship because of the ring at the end of the line. But actually, we have the house with the road and stork, and I have to say, this is very much a combination for a house move. Now, I could suggest changes in general, and yes, it doesn't have to be a house move. It can just be changes in other ways. But I have to say that these 3 cards are very tangible and it is very likely a house move or a move from a certain environment that is represented by the house. The house is typically home, family, where you live, your home base, your base, but it can represent other spaces. It can, for example, represent your team on the job. It tends to be like a smaller group. It can be another group that you're part of. It could be your gym. It could be whatever space that you go to that you're part of. And with the road and stork, I mean, each of these cards with the house by itself, like the house and stork or the house and road, would suggest a house move. But now we have all three of them. And so obviously you're making a change, you're moving, and you are engaging with something else, because the ring is a card of connections and relationships, and also commitments. So we see that you leave something behind and you engage in something else. And I have to say, it can be a house move, and it can be those sorts of physical moves. So very clear top three cards, very clear bottom row. Let's also look at the corners. We have the coffin and bear, and this is a significant ending. This is an important ending. The bear is also a card of courage and stamina. So it is possible that the message is that you need to make an effort to bring things to a close, to close this off. The Rider in book is an unknown path that is ahead for you. Now that's exciting. Well, I think it is. You don't have to think it is. But the book is often the card of things that are unknown. It's also on the right-hand side. So there can be a bit of a mystery around where you go next, what you do next after this change. The Rider in book can also be a card of news, because the Rider is a messenger and it can be delivering some information and some knowledge, or some, whatever it is you need at this time. And it's likely tied to this ending. We do find other news cards. We have the letter, and the story can be helpful with this as well. So from the get-go, we see that there's a significant ending that is ahead for you. An important ending is ahead for you, a change, and honestly, a big change. So a coffin, scythe, whip. This is very final. I have to say, they're also aggressive cards, so it could be a difficult ending. And it can be the ending that requires this force on your part, like we saw with the bear. So continuing with the top row, we have the dog, mouse, and book. The dog brings up a person. This can be a relationship. And we did see the ring in the bottom row as well, so it could be tying into that as well. Now, the dog between the whip and mouse suggests that this is not a great relationship, and there can be some issues or problems with this person. The book at the end here is interesting. It can mean a few things. It can mean that you disconnect from this person, so you sort of close off communication. You're no longer open to them, if you like. And there can also be some factors that you do not understand about this person. The mouse and book can mean that they lie, or that they don't share information, or they don't share, period. And so it can feel, again, that there is like a closed off energy with this person. So it seems to me that you're gonna wrap it up. It's also possible that they're the ones who move. So there is a change, but maybe the change is not coming from you. It does affect you, but the move or the going away, it can be this person who themselves go away. But in terms of the connection between you and them, there's a parting. So whoever does the physical change, if you like, there is still a change, and it affects the relationship. But again, it sounds like because of the corner cards and these first three cards that usually affect you directly, it sounds like you're the one who needs to draw a sharp line. In the second row, we have another person. We have the woman. It doesn't have to be the same person. And in fact, I don't think it is. This is a bright line. We have the fish with the heart and cross, and then the woman, tower, and anchor. So actually, this side here, this is a very supportive, long-term, committed, secure relationship. So this person is a better relationship, or is the one you're going to go with moving forward. She could also be represented by the stork and ring at the bottom. That too is possible. The fish is often a card of money, work, business, these practical areas. And with the heart and cross, maybe this woman brings you an opportunity, or she's someone you collaborate with, or she's someone you can go to for inspiration, for ideas, and for support. So that would definitely be advised from these cards. And I think it works well with the bottom row here. Now, it doesn't have to be a work or business relationship. The fish can also be about attraction and usually the physical aspect of a relationship, regardless of this specific, connection between you and this person. This second role is very positive. The tower can mean that it is someone from the past. It can mean that it is someone whom you had known for a long time. And it sounds like this is the relationship you're going to rely on, as opposed to the top one here, where it's clear that there's a break and a separation. So, good news for this relationship, and I would say in general, because um, there is a sense of liberty and freedom that comes from this change, and reshuffling things and adjusting your connections for the better is clearly captured in the cards. Let's look at row 3. We have the rider with the tree and snake. This is sometimes a tricky card. And then we have the letter, key, and bear. So this is very obviously some very good news, very positive feedback. The key opens a door, and the bear invites you to step into this with courage and strength. So these are great cards for good news. Earlier here, we have the rider, which is also a card of news, because it's a messenger card, just like we saw in the second set of corners. The snake is tricky. The snake tends to be a deception card. But with the tree, it is about wisdom. And with the letter, it would be about keeping this to yourself, or maybe you are privy to this information, which I have to say can also align with the book, because the book is also a card of mysteries and secrets. So it sounds like you know that there's some good news coming your way. You know that you're going to get it or get the positive feedback. It's just that the tree and snake, they slow you down and they suggest that you don't act on it just yet. And certainly you want to keep it to yourself. You want to keep it under your hat. And like we said, with the bottom row, there's this change, this move, and an engagement with another relationship. So I feel the cards do well for getting a job, getting an offer, or getting an opportunity. And if it's a personal relationship, well, the same dynamic applies where you could have some really good connection with someone and you decide to move away from someone else. That too is possible. So it does ask for a bit of patience and for things to unfold on the right time. The coffin with the fish and rider is similar because we start off with the coffin, which is a card of patience and endings. And also we have, in this order, it suggests that after this time of waiting, things pick up, which is what we saw here as well. The fish and rider is great for news about money, an offer, a project, something that has to do with your work, business, and financial affairs or practical things. But like I said, it's not strictly about that. It's usually about that, but it can have other meanings as well. So things pick up after a time of waiting. Now, the Scythe and Heart is usually a heartbreak, and connecting with these three cards, I think it makes sense. And then we have the dog, which can also bring up a relationship. The tree and house is the place where you stay or your roots or where you've been anchored. And it looks like you want to move on from this space. Something happens here that disappoints you, and it's time for you to move on. The tree and house happening after the scythe and heart can again suggest this idea of waiting and being patient. So before you make a move, you need to maybe have a bit of a plan. Maybe you don't have all of the information or everything is clear from the get-go. We see this from the writer and book, but still you want to time it well and you want to hang in there until you can make a change. The whip with the cross, snake, and road is very clearly about making a change. This is also a card combination of disappointment. The whip and cross usually suggests pain, sometimes punishment. And the snake and road is very much about turning away, usually because of disappointment. So this is um, clearly representing the fallout. And it connects with the top row, and it's close to these cards. So it's very clear that there's disappointment and a fallout and the need to move on. The dog, woman, letter, and stork. This is another very clear message of news that picks things up, that moves things forward. And it's probably what gives you the ability to make the change and move on. So the dog and woman represents usually a friend, and because of the letter, it points to some good news. The letter is also close to the key and bear, so again confirming this good news. And the stork is a card of change and moves that a T crosses with the bottom row. So clearly you get the news or the input or the feedback or whatever it is you need from this person, and you get the green light to move and make a change. The mouse with the tower, key, and ring is also a card combination of success because of the key, which is between the tower and ring. So you are in for a long-term kind of success. You know, the phase that's ahead is positive, and it is also about unlocking doors and opportunity. The thing about the mouse and tower is that things could have dragged a long time, and maybe wasted time, maybe you felt stuck for a long time, but at this point, you definitely have the green light to move forward. And it is also another message that points to waiting, even if you have to bear with it a while longer, being patient until you get the green light. We saw this with the coffin, we saw this with the tree, and we saw it with the tree and snake, and also with the tree and house. We're seeing it here as well. So be patient until things can turn around. The book with the anchor and bear is quite an interesting combination. Usually, I take the book and anchor to suggest having confidence in your knowledge, in your information, and the bear certainly gives you a boost of confidence. So, in the context of what's happening here, these unknown factors or this lack of knowledge about what's ahead, you can do something about this. You can double check everything. You can find as much information as you need. You can plan things out as much as you need. And then when you're ready, move on and make this change. The anchor really encourages you to have confidence in yourself. And if this is about you pursuing some knowledge or education or learning something, then it's also a really good sign for that. So these are some mostly neutral cards. We do have challenging cards, yes, but they really affect this change. And then there's the move and the need to move forward in a different direction, even if you don't know everything about what's ahead. I think the move is still clearly highlighted here, and it supports you with this change. Now we can also look at a few other things in this tableau. What stands out are two portraits. So we have the heart and tower that are at the center of these two portraits. The heart is a feeling card. It's usually about feelings, and we see that there's quite a few challenging cards around it. Especially these cards, the scythe and heart, the whip and heart, the coffin and heart, the snake and heart, and also the cross. Actually, it points to regret and feeling heavy. So these are some pretty challenging cards around the heart. I have to say that maybe you experience a heartbreak or a disappointment. So there is a bit of a painful phase here. And then on the other side, we see the changes that come through in the bottom row and other combinations as well. The fish with the rider entry here, they point to the focus on work and your money, your business, and these practical areas, and also the need to rectify things. So the tree usually brings wisdom and a sense of taking stock and having the right perspective. So very clear disappointments that we're seeing for you, unfortunately. The coffin with the heart and snake, here's a clear diagonal. It points to letting go of something that is no longer working out. And the rider with the heart and whip is actually quite similar, to move on, from this disappointment. The cards around the tower, we have here the tower. The tower is a card of the long term, the past, um, usually a sense of longevity, so a long stretch of time. It is also the card of institutions, organizations, and things that are official. And when we look at the cards around it, the cards are generally brighter. So first off, we have the mouse. It is a bit of a challenging card, but it's not as challenging as these cards. So the difficulty is really around the earlier parts here. The cards around here are generally okay. They're mostly neutral. The key and anchor is nice. They bring success and a sense of confidence. The bear is also great for a sense of stability and longevity. And the letter and book really brings up news and probably some official stuff, that's more formal communication in, this sort of area. So this brings the good news. It also brings the people cards, the dog and woman. And so it's clear that there is communication with this person or these people. I think they're going to help you move forward. You could establish yourself moving forward, and you'll find a better ground for the longer term, moving past the challenges that we see earlier. The mouse is a bit challenging, but it's not the end of the world. It's really about figuring out some details, ironing out a few annoyances here and there. So it's really much smaller than the challenges of the cards on the left. The dog with the tower and bear is great for a long-term relationship, and it can also be a relationship with someone in authority, because both the tower and bear represent authority. And when they're together, I tend to think of people like managers, CEOs, and people at the top. And with the dog here, you could approach this person for support, and I think you'll get it. And we see this here as well, and the key, and the woman, tower, and anchor. All of these cards suggesting a solid relationship. So again, the mouse is much smaller than the other challenging cards, and the cards around it help overcome whatever issues, annoyances, or unknowns it represents, especially with a card like the book. So these are some bright messages for overcoming the challenges here. And there's also some clear guidance. It really encourages you to let go of what isn't working out. So just let this fall off and tap into better relationships, supportive relationships, so you can move forward. And then you will. Big move. The cards clearly capture a big move. So even though the cards there aren't these bright cards. We're not seeing the sun, clover, flowers. We do have the key. It's a bright card, but there aren't many of them. So there's the challenging cards and a lot of neutral cards that highlight this change and the need for this change. Let's wrap up with a few more diagonals. Let's pick out a few of the bigger ones. The coffin with the heart, snake, and stork. So again, we read these three cards as part of the portrait, and then it's followed by the stork, which is a card of change and moves, like we saw in the bottom row. The key and anchor is great for success and achievement. So you let go of this part and you're able to come to a better conclusion, to find yourself, and to land on a better solution moving forward. So again, another encouraging message for you to let go of this situation and make a change. We have the other one here, which starts here, the fish with the tree and road, and a letter, tower, and book. So we read these three cards as this important news, and the fish, tree, and road, again, focusing on the area of work, money, and business, and the need to grow and change. So I think tapping into this tower and the people in this situation are going to help inform your move and help you grow as well. So really nice cards for this sense of growth. The rider with the heart whip and woman key. So again, highlighting the issues that we saw earlier, and the woman key can help bring answers. So it sounds like you do have people who are supportive, so you're not alone in this. And we have also the one that starts here with the tree, cross, dog, tower, and bear. Again, tapping into the support just like we saw earlier. The cross can be a bit challenging. It does bring up a sense of heaviness and burden. So do what you have to do, and I think you'll find some really good answers from these supportive people. Other combinations across diagonals. There's this one. We have the house, snake, woman, mouse, and anchor. So the woman in this context might suggest the more challenging relationships, or the fallout here. That's possible. She could also be part of the solution, as you need to tap into her to help resolve the problems. And the one that comes here starts here with the fish and scythe. That's a break, a separation, and the cross with the letter and ring. So we see the scythe is at the juncture between the change, between the two. What I mean by that is you release the situation, there's a break off, and then there's a contract or a connection here, an agreement that we see through the letter and ring. So again, the messages are consistent all throughout. There's a clear separation and ending. It is a difficult ending. I think we're clear on that at this point. but it is also asking you to tap into the support that you have in order to find a solution longer term. And I think you will absolutely do that. So some really nice cards for change. If you're after change, it's very likely to materialize within the next 3 months. I have to say though that the change is potentially radical and it can involve a big move or a deep move, a deep change in your life. It can involve people and spaces, and it can be pretty difficult when it comes to that. But it sounds like you've got to do this at this point, and you've got to move on and reestablish yourself for the next phase. Another suggestion I want to make is that whatever changes you make, the new ones that you move into, you want to keep the long-term picture in mind. So don't take shortcuts, and what you land in, you want to make sure is going to be something you can stick with over the longer term. So it's a good idea to, after this change and this difficult episode, that you try to establish yourself in a space where you can hang out for a longer term so that you don't have to go through more changes in the near term. So again, we're looking at a 3 month horizon, but what you establish yourself in once you're past this change can be beyond 3 months. And like I said, the cards can apply in different contexts. We could be looking at a job thing because of the fish, and we could be looking at relationships because of the dog, woman, and ring. Yes, we have relationships in every area, but I mean personal relationships. So in that sense, it could be quite challenging, especially the feeling cards here around the heart. But again, you could have prospect moving forward, and that could be something better and stable over the long term. And remember to time your change and to wait for the right time until you've got the green light, until you've got what you need. And even if you don't know everything about the path forward, do what you can to close the gaps and then move forward. So quite a powerful reading, I have to say. The cards are a bit heavy, they're quite strong. And so that's why I felt it could be a big, deep change. But you let me know what you make of them. Let me know in the comments how you resonated with these cards. Maybe you'll wait 3 months and then come back to let me know, or maybe you know from now what's ahead in this coming phase. So very good luck with this change. I really wish you the best with it and turning the whole situation around for the better. I certainly hope you do that for yourself. Let me know how it goes. Thank you as always for tuning in. Very best of luck. And until next time, take very good care of yourself. Okay, welcome to your reading. This is for the blink of an eye group. We are going to deal out your mini PK and see what is ahead for you in the next 3 months. Okay, here is your mini PK. As you can see, it's quite a big spread. We have 3 rows of 6 cards and 1 row of 4 cards at the bottom. And just from an overview of the cards, we do have some challenging messages, but we also have some really bright ones. We have the sun, the key, and the star, and the sun and key are in the bottom row. So these are some really beautiful outcomes that we can look forward to. I'm trying to straighten up the cards a little bit here. They're kind of smaller, and it's still a new deck. It sort of slides a little bit. So as I said, we have a lot. There's a lot going on in a mini PK, but we do have some ways to, if you like, frame the reading and take away some general directions, or actually some more specific directions in view of the many cards. So starting with the corner cards, we have the bear and star, and this is definitely a combination for wish fulfillment. And it is a clear message in your PK as a whole that wish fulfillment and good things materializing for you are ahead within the coming 3 months. The bear makes everything big, and the star by itself is also a card that has like an overarching effect on your life. So this could be a pretty big deal. Now, the ring and mountain can represent a relationship or a connection that you have either online or in another location. Sometimes the mountain is a card of obstacles, but I don't think in this combination, or at least in the corners, it is, because the bear and mountain can also represent someone who is based abroad or in a different location. So just looking at the corners, we see that you can materialize a relationship or a connection that you desire, and that is maybe farther away from you or online. Now, the bottom row is also really lovely. We have two very bright cards. We have the Key and Sun, and these are wish fulfillment cards, just like with the others. With the Star and Bear. And earlier we have the bird, and between the key and sun, we have the stork. So the bird is often a card of news, and with the key, it brings good news. And with the stork, there is the green light and the change that you want to see. This is definitely a wonderful message for things materializing in the way that you want. Really nice to wrap up or end the piquet with the sun. And actually, on this corner, we have the star. So, very beautiful messages here for wish fulfillment. A very powerful bottom row and a pretty powerful set of corner cards as well. So really nice message right from the get-go. Now earlier we have a new dimension to these messages. We have the bear with the man and heart. Now whether you're the man or the other person is the man or whoever this person, these two people represent, the man and woman, this is wonderful for a relationship. Now, what's interesting is the rest of the line. We have the scythe and heart, and then the child and mountain. Now, normally, the scythe and heart is a heartbreak, normally. So there can be a separation, or there could have been an issue. But I have to say that there are still some very beautiful messages for a new beginning. The child and mountain often represents an important new chapter, and maybe one that you haven't, like, you don't really see the full effect of this. You don't really know how important the next phase is going to be. So if there is a separation from someone, it is going to lead you into a new beginning that's going to be really significant. But remember, we also said we have the ring and mountain, and we have the bear and star, and these are wish fulfilling cards. So if this is about a breakup, then the turnaround is very positive, and you could be moving into a new relationship. But if it's not a breakup, then whatever the issues brought by the heart and scythe, they can turn or transform into a very positive connection. So this would be healing, and it would be overcoming the challenges. So a very interesting set of cards from the get-go. And the first three cards here, the very first steps of the PK, are really focused on a relationship. Now in the next row, we have the house with the tower and the road, book, clouds, and dog. So I think this brings a fair amount of doubts and question marks around the relationship, because we have the book and clouds and then the clouds and dog. Usually with the clouds, there are some doubts about how the other person feels. We could be feeling insecure, wondering if there are mutual feelings. And I think this has to do with the person, because we have the dog, and the dog T crosses the mountain into the star. So I think we have pretty good reasons here to believe that it's the same person. Now, the house and tower is interesting because it can suggest a place from the past or from like a distance, because the tower brings up distance, and we saw the ring and mountain at the corner. So we could also be looking at the idea of a place. On top of that, we have the road, which is a card of travel. And so there can be an element of connecting with this person who is maybe in another location or at least away from you. And with the book and clouds, you could be wondering if this is the right direction, or you could have question marks around what this place is. It could be something that you have yet to discover. On the other side of this, we see the relationship. So there can be some movements here. Maybe you're going somewhere to meet someone. Maybe there needs to be some travel or at least some activity so that you can get together with this person. And the thing about the second row is that it brings up question marks around, well, you don't know this place, or you haven't done this before, or it could be a trip, or it could be, it requires some other kind of effort. So you could be wondering if this is okay to do. And you could also be wondering if it's worth doing, because of the doubts around the person here, wondering how they feel. The ring with the tree, and then we have the woman, coffin, snake, and star. So it's interesting because we have a parallel between the top row and the bottom row. Here we have the scythe and heart, which is a heartbreak. And here we have the coffin and snake, which could be a major disappointment. But again, on the other side of this, we have the star. And on the other side of the top row, we have the child and mountain, suggesting healing and a wonderful new beginning. The ring and tree is great for a developing relationship and things that are growing. Maybe sort of like what we see with the tower and mountain, because they're slower cards, they unfold a little bit over time. But again, there is a challenge that comes up and then a healing. So we're seeing similar structures here, and both lines have the man, the people cards. This one has the woman, and the top has the man. And like I said, these are flexible. So it sounds like there is an obstacle in the relationship, or something comes up, and that could cause doubts and question marks around the relationship. But what we're seeing is that the cards also suggest healing and overcoming this. So that's quite an interesting dynamic. Like I said, the bottom row brings this wonderful message of success, all around success and wonderful things moving forward. So I really think that it's either that the issues that come up lead you into a fresh start, which is very promising and very fulfilling, or the issues are healed and resolved, and you're able to move forward in a much more positive way. Let's look at the columns. Let's see what else we get. We have the bear, house, and ring. This is quite a commitment. The bear and house is definitely about your base and where where you stand. And the ring is very much a commitment. I have to say this can represent parents and your family home. And maybe this is what we're looking at, mom, dad, home, roots, the past. That too is possible. So that's one way we can interpret the cards, but let's leave that at the end because it's a bit more specific. Let's first continue with this interpretation based on the more common way, a more um, obvious way to read the cards. So this would point to where you live or what you're involved with. The house is normally home and family, but it can represent other spaces in your life as well. It can represent your group on the job, your team, other places and spaces that you're part of. And so there are many possibilities. But with the bear and ring, there's definitely a message of staying where you are and sticking with the situation. The man with the tower, tree, and birds is a nice combination because it does bring a sense of longevity and connection. The tower and tree have an element of the long term. They are slower cards, so maybe the relationship takes more time to evolve, but it still seems to be on a strong foundation. And the birds here is about communication and contact. So, in another sense, you could have been waiting to hear back from this person or to be in touch with this person, but it could also mean that the communication is evolving and you're getting to know each other. And there is a sense of stability in these cards. And notice that we have the house and tree and mount and tower and the bear actually, and actually the ring, and they're quite solid, and there's a strong sense of commitment. The heart with the road, woman, and key is lovely. This points to a bright and positive direction that's opening up in the relationship. Sometimes the heart and road can represent a change of heart, and it can mean that someone is not really committed. But because of the key, that's not really the meaning of the road. Instead, it's just focusing on this direction because it pays off. So actually, these are quite positive cards. And we'll get to the portrait around the tower in a bit. Notice that we have the man and woman in this portrait, and it's very clear about the relationship that is in focus here. Now, the scythe with the book, coffin, and stork. This is definitely a change and an ending. And the book can be a card of news, and with the scythe, it can be an announcement or a sudden kind of news that comes up. And with the coffin and stork, there's definitely an ending. So this ties into the top row where we have a confirmation because of the child, which points to a new beginning. And the child with the clouds, snake, and then we have the sun. Notice again, it's a similar pattern as what we saw earlier. Here we had the coffin and snake, and then followed by the beautiful star. Here we have the clouds and snake, followed by the beautiful sun. So we're seeing parallels again. And it's really nice to see this because it helps confirm the idea that the doubts are the challenges, which I have to say, they're not easy challenges, but still, the sun and star are very powerful cards. They're positive and strongly positive cards, and in fact, they are the brightest cards of the deck, along with a few others. So it looks like you can overcome the challenge. With the child at the top, it can mean that at first there are the challenges, but regardless of whether it's exactly at first or, as the relationship evolves, it sounds like you can overcome these doubts. The mountain with the dog and star is a wonderful message. The star is a healing card, all around wish fulfillment card. And the dog and mountain suggest someone who's based abroad. So it's someone you're in touch with, you have a relationship, or it can mean that you overcome the obstacles with this person, because the mountain can also suggest an obstacle. So very clear that this is highly, highly focused on relationships. I mean, it's hard not to see this. Man, woman, ring, heart, and dog. We have essentially all of the relationship cards. We also have the sun and star, which are very bright, and the key, which are very bright. And so, despite the challenges, it's nice to see these very bright cards towards the right and bottom sides of the piquet, because these positions, they tend to be associated with outcomes. So whatever challenges come up, which can be fears of a breakup or doubts or whatever other challenges, it looks like they are resolved. So really, really nice message. And also, the relationship can be an intimate, personal relationship. It could be a friendship, but it could also be another connection you have in another area of your life. I think the challenges are overcome, and you can look forward to healing and moving forward very positively in this relationship. Now, there's a few more things we can read. We have the two portraits, the two main portraits. We have one portrait around the tower and one portrait around the clouds. Notice that the cards around the portrait, around the tower, they are all around relationships. The man, the woman, the heart, and the ring. The bear with the tower and woman is a long-term relationship. There's also a very solid energy here. And we have the ring, tower, and heart, and this too is very much a relationship for the long term. The heart tends to be a feeling card, and so that's maybe a clue that this is a personal relationship, but it can be another relationship as well. We have the house with the tower and road, so pursuing this long-term direction. The tower and tree, also a combination for longevity. So really, the cards in the around the tower, they focus on relationships, and the tower really glues through all the other combinations this idea of long-term commitment. So the challenges that we see are probably not going to be final, in the sense that they don't break the relationship, they don't kill it, they don't compromise it forever. There are challenges that come up around the clouds, but we also have the star in this very nice position because it's the gathering spot of all the portrait. And remember also the bottom row. So the scythe with the clouds and star is healing, and it is also clarity, because the scythe, it is a card that cuts, and the cloud is a card of confusion. And actually, when we see these two together, it could be a very positive combination, even though each card on its own is a bit concerning. So there is a cutting through the confusion, and the star is very much a card of clarity and healing. So that's actually a bright message. The coffin with the clouds and mountain can definitely suggest an obstacle and things being on hold, and a sense of not knowing how this is going to evolve or what's going to happen. So yes, there are doubts and question marks. We saw this with the book and clouds as well. And with the child, clouds, and snake, you could be wondering if this is actually going to pick up at all. And we see that it does because of the sun at the bottom of this column. So a clear message here of being able to save the relationship. And I'm really inclined to see the reading in this way. Even though the scythe and clouds and snake and coffin, they're not the easiest of cards. But in contrast, we have some very bright cards in key positions, like the bottom row and on this side of the layout. And also, even though these are earlier in the layout, they're still very strong and really focused on the relationship. And not just that, but with longevity cards cards that clearly suggest stability and a strong foundation and the long terms and this slow energy that creates a weight to the relationship. And I think that's very much what keeps it in place and what keeps the connection. And that's on top of the beautiful bottom row, which is an all around success and happy combination of cards. These are active, moving cards that bring good news and positive changes. So it's pretty clear to me that the issues that we see through the clouds, and I think there are issues that affect the relationship, you're going to be able to overcome them and move forward positively. So lovely cards. There are a few more things we can read. We can read the diagonals. Let's look at some bigger ones, longer ones. We have the bear, tower, and woman. We saw this in the portrait. And then we have the stork. So I think things pick up with this relationship. The snake and dog can bring up doubts, and often the snake and dog can represent someone who's deceptive. Again, I think these are part of the challenges that come up, the doubts and things like that. And actually, what comes to mind is a possible scenario of a third party interfering in the relationship because the dog is a third party. So we have the man woman, which represents the two people in the relationship, and the dog can represent a third person. Now, what also hints at that is the snake. And the snake in relationship is often a card of cheating. So it can represent a third party who tries to interfere in the relationship. But I have to say, if that's the case, then there's even better news because this person goes away. This person moves away. This person is cut out of the picture, especially with the beautiful star and sun. So that too is possible. So we were reading this diagonal, and that's what inspired us to consider this as an additional possibility. The other one is where does it start? It goes here, starts here. The house with the tree and key. Very nice combination. This is achieving a very important goal. And then we've got the coffin, clouds, and mountain here, which again brings up the challenges. So that's what we were seeing from these two portraits and overall is that the strength of the relationship puts you in a position to deal with the issues with confidence. So the issues that come up are not strong enough to break the strength of the relationship. And that's what we're seeing in the order of these cards. So you have a strong foundation and you've got what it takes to deal with the challenges that come up. We also have a similar message here. We have the ring, tower, and heart, and then the book and snake. That's a bit like what we saw with the stork, snake, and dog, where you have a strong foundation in the relationship to deal with some issues that come up, and these issues could be a third party. We read this one. Let's look at this one. The man with the road coffin and sun into the star. So this is a beautiful one because it combines two of the brightest cards here. And earlier we have the man with the road and coffin. This could be the end of the road for someone. And the sun and star brings healing. So again, if there is a third party, I think this person is going to be removed from the picture and the relationship is going to be saved. And it's likely that this man could be the one who might be involved in this relationship, in this external relationship, but it comes to an end and there's a beautiful message of healing here. Other diagonals, maybe the tree with the road, scythe, clouds, and star. Again, similar idea, the strong foundation here, and the change is a positive change. So again, this challenging factor, this challenging element, whether it is a problem or an issue between the two of you, or something external to the relationship, or a third party trying to interfere with the relationship, this is cut out and there is healing and a positive resolution. I think the message is clear. I think the diagonals and all the cards coming together are confirming the same ideas that we've seen a few times already. So a very strong focus on a relationship and a very strong foundation in the relationship. Whatever problems come up, They could be challenging, they could be tricky to deal with, but they are going to be dealt with, and you are going to succeed at removing any negative factors from the relationship and from the situation as a whole, and embrace the healing and a positive path forward. So really powerful in this regard. Now, like I said, I feel the cards are emphasizing a personal relationship. But we have relationships in other areas as well. It doesn't have to be a personal relationship. It could be in relation to your work, for example, where maybe there's a difficult episode that comes up. Maybe there's a difficult person who messes things up and causes, all of this issue that you're dealing with. But I think you're on a strong foundation. You also have the support of others, maybe your managers and others, and you're able to overcome this and you're able to resolve the problem. That is also a very positive message. I also suggested that it could represent your parents or your family home, because we have so much that could suggest that. The bear and house are actually classical indicators of the mother and the father. The bear is classically the mother, and the house is classically the father in Lenormand. On top of that, we have the ring, which are close relationships, and with the house we could be looking at family relationships. We also have the tower, which is the long-term past or future, and we have the tree, which can represent your family roots, and that it's associated with the family tree. And then we have the man and woman. So we have all of these cards that can represent home, family, and parents. So if that's an area for you that comes up, same idea. There can be some issues and problems with your home, your family. There can be some changes. There can be factors that I would say poison the home a little bit, but there is healing and there is a positive resolution. And this toxic factor or this problem that comes up, or even a person who interferes with your home and tries to mess things up, that factor is going to be removed, and there's going to be a very, very positive resolution. So a focus on relationships, a focus on a challenge that comes up, and on a positive resolution that resolves this. So again, even though we have the scythe and the clouds and the snake, I really don't see that the relationship falls apart, even in some tough combination like the heart and scythe, the scythe and road, which can point to a change of direction, and the different combinations with the snake. Despite this, I really think that this is a strong relationship that can deal with whatever comes, and there's a positive change and a positive resolution forward, and even wish fulfillment. I have to say that, even wish fulfillment. So the situation can even be turned around so that things are even better with the star and sun and key in these key positions here. So really nice set of cards. An amazing focus on a relationship, like really the concentration of cards that point to this strong relationship is quite amazing here. I'm going to leave it at that. Let me know what you make of this. Let me know who these people were, what the relationship was, what the challenge was, and how you overcame it to land in an even better situation, I hope. As always, I look forward to your thoughts and feedback. You might, take it away for the next 3 months and then come back, or maybe you can let me know from now because you sort of see already what is unfolding. Very best of luck with this. Thank you as always for tuning in, and until next time, take very good care of yourself.